most popular comic book in the world today is coming to life. Sneak preview of X-Men this Saturday morning on Fox.
Hey, I'm Pops, and welcome to Saturday Morning Cartoons, the X-Men animated rewatch and reaction video. Hope you're here for it, having some fun with me. Thanks for hanging out on Saturday Morning Cartoons. Uh, Another X-Men animated series segment that points right back to a comic, right? So, right after the Phoenix Saga in the comic, you have this moment where Cyclops just can't handle it and he's going to exit the team. What's interesting about this episode, because it's called No Mutant is an Island, is over the course of the next 4 or 5 episodes, the order in which they are put in now versus the way they were aired at the time and when they were produced and all of that is kind of jumbled up. So bear with me if you don't think this lines up the way you think it should. I think it fits very perfectly to what the original Phoenix Saga story is and why it works to have it here. So I'm going to stick with that type of continuity, and that's what we're going to go with for this episode because this is a standalone episode. I mean, there are other characters that are in it very briefly. None of them are really that relevant. It's basically the wake of Jean Grey, who has sacrificed herself as the Phoenix Force. She's helped them overcome and win with the crystal so that it doesn't suck in basically the universes. And in doing so, Jean is presumed dead. Cyclops is a mess. He is mourning her. There's like a hologram of her. Professor Xavier tries to talk to him, I guess. Again, Professor Xavier really is not very good at this. And I really kind of wanted to go back and maybe read that issue in the comic to see if he's just much of a bit of a, I don't want to say an insensitive tool, but it's like, give the dude a chance, man. So uh, I will say this is a very deep episode and a very important episode for kids. So again, we always go back to those kinds of themes and messages of what makes these shows so great is that they are so layered with things that you can pick up on later on in life. So here Cyclops leaves. He leaves the X-Men mansion, goes out to an orphanage, which is where he was a child, and there's a fire at this accidentally even said here. There's a mutant named Rusty, and Rusty can't control his powers. And there's some back and forth that kind of goes through all of this, and you realize that there's a character named Zebediah Kilgrave, and Kilgrave is one he's been basically adopting out a whole bunch of these mutant youths that can't find a home. And Cyclops interacts with a lady named Sarah. He knows her from their childhood, and she's very protective of the kids. She loves the kids. She thinks the best of Rusty. He's quote misunderstood, and the Cyclops is trying to intercede. And there's a scene where Kilgrave shows up, and you start to see whether Cyclops is kind of like questioning him, like, "Well, does there a reason why Rusty doesn't want to go be with you? Is there something going on here we should all know about?" So that's what's going on. And of course, yes, Kilgrave is the Purple Man. So most people are not going to be familiar with the Purple Man. Purple Man is the villain that was in Jessica Jones, but he has ties that date back to Daredevil. But more, he's really, really interesting because of the mind control elements. And he's working with other characters that we get a quick shot at other kids like Boom Boom and Skids. But it's his mind controlling powers that makes Purple Man so dangerous. And he's going to use these mutants as slaves, use them as sort of like a proxy army to attack the governor, take some political power for himself, right? And I have to admit that the interaction with Scott and Sarah is very, very sweet. It is interesting to see Scott as sort of like the rebound guy because he talks about Jean in very coded language, right? Because he doesn't use the term fiance, things like that, right? But whenever they're there talking, they see this news report, Kilgrave and these kids, and it's like, oh man, this is crazy. So they kind of go into action. Cyclops goes to this place, and there's this attack on him, right? Kilgrave's not hiding the ball at all, right? He's going to basically be evil, show us he's evil. Scott gets knocked out, thrown to a pool. And I thought that was very, very intense. Like that was actually him at risk of dying. And I thought it was very, very powerful. I did not remember that part at all. I remember there being a battle. I guess in my head, I thought, well, they knock him out. The fact that he would be put in a pool or possibly drowning, and Sarah actually saves him, giving him mouth to mouth. And then there's sort of like this brainwashing of these mutants. So they're willing to fight for Kilgrave. And then when Cyclops figures out where this monitor is, this computer room is, and he blasts it with his optic blast, and then gives these kids a pep talk. And the one kid's like so sweet. And not all shows do this, and it kind of feels, if in some ways it felt kind of clunky with the way the story was going, but it was very authentic because the kid looks at her and says, "Sarah, can we just go home now?" And I thought that is really, really good because that's what a kid would do. A kid would be like, "Okay, I'm good now. Can I go home?" Like they're not. Kids are so resilient. I just loved it. So there's a helicopter fight. Cyclops shoots it down. They do jump out, and they don't actually perish. And like both the pilot and Purple Man live, but the orphanage gets destroyed, and all of that happens. And you start to see Scott's inner conflict come to light, manifest himself in his body language to say, "Listen, I have to go back to be with the X-Men. I see now with these kids what's going on with them. I mean, you're going to rebuild, right?" And she's like, "Yeah." He's got to go back and be with the X-Men. And I thought, this is really, really good stuff. And this is something that took a little longer in the comic book story, took a little bit more easing into things for Scott. They spent a little more time with, but here it moves pretty quick. And I will say, as he goes back, and there's another sort of like hologram thing, and it's like Jean's alive, basically. But the fact that they would deal with mourning and grief in this way on this show, this is different than when they did what they did with Morph in episode 1, because they wanted something very heavy. They wanted to have, some gravitas with the fact that these characters were at risk and could perish. And this is a little different because this is loss, but more importantly, it's like, what is okay, what is not okay. Sometimes you need a moment to step aside. Maybe you need to go back to your responsibilities. You can't hide who you really are. There could be someone else that comes in your path. Is it right to be with her or not be with her? There's a lot of little elements that are in here that are very mature and interesting, but also done in a very tactful and appropriate way. So I love the episode. Don't know that I put it anywhere near like top tier stuff, but they don't waste time. Like this could have easily have been sort of like a filler, phone it in type of episode. And I found this to have a lot more weight to it than even like the first 2 episodes of the season. This really, really has a lot to it, and you see it at the end. You see it at the end when they have their hope renewed with the fact that Jean could be alive. They say that she is, but they don't really know. I loved all that. I thought it was great. So, all right. Yes, later coming up, Batman animated series reaction, and then after that, a special video, Resolute Germ. It was longer than an in-betweener. We couldn't put it in between. We had to put it after Batman because we talked for so long. If you don't know who Resolute Germ is, make sure you go check out his channel. He does full-on Saturday morning watch parties with Cosme, using Cosme as an outlet for him. Talks about all sorts of different shows. Talks about his favorites. We talk about Men in Black. I got to do something with this Men in Black show because I can't get a physical copy. I gotta watch it, share some thoughts with that. So that's my take on this. Hopefully you guys are enjoying our time together. Have some commercials, and listen, till next week. Talk to you then. Take care, everybody. I am Pops.
Hey, kid. Think you're an X-Man? This is the place to prove it.
X-Men headquarters! The danger room!
Sabretooth and Apocalypse are breaking in. What do?
The wrecking ball!
What about Apocalypse?
The battle laser!
Watch out, kid.
Pivoting bomb blaster!
Now what?
The X-Track!
I shall return, X-Men.
Only X-Men get into X-Men headquarters. Action figures sold separately.
We'll be right back.
Hey you looking for some fun? Then just look for the Nabisco thing. Because when you see the Nabisco thing on the outside, you know there's cool stuff on the inside. Things you'll love, like Chips Ahoy. Delicious Chips Ahoy. Plus, tons more stuff, like the Nabisco Thing Cool Bus Contest, delivering a busload of scrumptious Nabisco snacks and Slammin' Tiger toys right to your house. 17 grand prize winners in all. To enter, you can write here or see marked packs of Chips Ahoy.
It's the new Star Wars lightsaber from Kenner. Inflation required, batteries not included. You can pretend you have powers when you switch on Kenner's Star Wars lightsaber.
Ready to feel the Force? Yeah! Switch on your Star Wars lightsabers, close your eyes, and go! I got it! Me too! Zap! You passed the test! The Force is with you!
The Star Wars lightsaber, new from Kenner. Balloons not included.
It's a good time for the great taste. Hot crispy fries, world famous fries. Light and golden, got to hold 'em, can't wait. Right before my eyes, McDonald's fries. I've got 'em and I can't hesitate. I gotta have 'em, yeah, I'll take 'em by surprise. Gotta get a taste of those hot crispy fries. Ooh, it's a good time for the great taste of McDonald's.
Beware, the mutant-seeking sentinel.
Target identified. Mutant apprehended. Want to mix it up, big boy? My adamantium claws will get Rogue back. I've always had trouble with man. My optic blast will give him trouble. Firing projectile arm. Now, Sentinel, you will be defeated.
Sentinel robot playset and X-Men action figures. Each sold separately.